Well, a very warm welcome to you guys. Hello, it's Cassim, and welcome to another episode of Journal Entries. So I just want to firstly start off by thanking you very much for joining me on this very lovely day. It's actually Valentine's Day for those of you who are watching me live. So happy Valentine's Day to you, and I hope that this Valentine's Day has brought you all the joy and happiness that you could ever wish for in your life. And if it hasn't, there's always next year. Things always get better. You're just going through a season in your life at the moment. So as always, thank you very much for listening to me as I share some of my thoughts, some of my ideas, some of my strategies over the next kind of half an hour or so. And I really hope that something that I share with you can help you to become a higher, fuller expression of who you're capable of becoming. So I want to talk to you and share with you some journal notes on 3 different topics. The first of which is one of which you've already seen in the title of today's show, which is on the importance of partnerships. I then want to talk to you on another thing that I was thinking about, which is that it's time to make the difficult decisions. And the third and final thing that I want to talk to you about is that now that you're older, you want different things. So those are the 3 things that I wanted to talk to you about. Just briefly, most of you know what this show is all about. I started this show because I wanted to inspire you. I wanted to inspire you to start your own journaling. I wanted to inspire you to write down your ideas, your philosophies, your strategies and your tactics and lessons that you'd learned in your life that you can use to pass on to the next generation so that they can rise to heights that neither of us could even ever possibly imagine. And I'm not just talking about your children, but I'm talking about your neighbors. I'm talking about your godchildren. I'm talking about your nephews. I'm talking about your brothers and sisters. I'm talking about sharing what you have learned, and I'm not talking about money, and I'm not talking about wealth, and I'm not talking about assets, but I'm talking about intellectual property that you've acquired over many years of experience, of failures, of successes, of trying different things, and passing it on to them so that they can have a head start, so they can use what you've shared with them so that they can take it to a whole different level. So that's what I hope today does for you, and I hope that one day you go and buy your own journal and you start writing down what success means to you, what is failure, what 5 steps you would do to become successful, what you would do differently. If you could, go back to 21, what 5 pieces of information about relationships you'd give yourself if you were 25 today, based on the knowledge that you have today. I hope that is what you would one day perhaps start on the path of. Okay, so let's get into today's 3 topics that I want to share with you. And I want to begin off with the first topic, which you've seen I've entitled today, which is the importance of partnerships. I've been thinking a lot about this topic of partnerships, and I think part of it has been the fact that we're coming up to, obviously, today's Valentine's Day. And one of the things that I've come to realize is that a lot of people don't really understand the significance of partnerships. And I'm not just talking about partnerships in terms of relationships. I'm talking about partnerships in all of these definitions. I'm talking about partnerships in terms of business. I'm talking about partnerships in terms of the community. I'm talking about partnerships in terms of friendships. I'm talking about partnerships and all of these expressions. And I think that many of us have lived up and have grown up in a world where today most of us don't really understand the power and the significance and the benefits of being in a partnership, right? I think we've grown up in a world where many of us, for example, let's just use relationships as an example, where many of us, we look at a partnership in terms of a relationship as a negative thing. Many of you guys who are listening to me, you couldn't possibly want to get married because as far as you're concerned, the way you see it is getting married costs a lot of money. Why would you want to get married? It's really all about the parents and other people. But what I think many of you are forgetting are some of the benefits of being married, of getting into a partnership. I think many people think and have the philosophy that if I do something alone, then my chances of success are increased. I'm here to tell you that I found that is not true. Actually, your chances of succeeding are increased when you bind into a partnership with somebody else. In fact, if you look at if we look at the business world and we look at some of the most successful people, let's say the likes of somebody like Usain Bolt, or we look at somebody like a brand like Nike, many of these different arenas and these different fields and these bodies and these different individuals, all of them, part of the reason that allowed them to be able to achieve the success that they managed in terms of the marketplace, in terms of business, in terms of their field or their domain of competence, is that they managed to establish significant partnerships with, whether it be a coach, whether it be a mentor, whether it be a business partner, whether it be somebody who was a producer. You look at somebody like Beyonce. Beyonce did not get to where she got to because Beyonce did every single song by herself. Beyonce got to where she got to because she had to collaborate with different dancers. She had to get into partnership with different producers and different artists. And that is what allowed her to be able to elevate herself to the level of success that she's managed to achieve. And I just wanted to share with you and really get you to think about the fact that perhaps the fact that you're not as successful as you can be isn't down to the fact that you don't have the desire. It isn't down to the fact that you don't have the ability. It's just down to the fact that you just haven't partnered with the right people. Part of the reason why perhaps you're not experiencing the joy and abundance and happiness that you can achieve in your life is because you're living your life alone. You know, I found in all of my years so far, God knows 30 years on this planet, I haven't found one person who said that the reason why that they were happy and the reason why they've lived this incredible life was because they did it alone. Was because they struggled through and they were an individual and it was all about them, and that is what has created this enormous success and this enormous abundance. I've spent a considerable amount of my time studying and looking at acceptance speeches from people who are giving graduation speeches, Academy Award speeches, all over different arenas, whether it be in sports, whether it be in people in gardening, whether it be dog shows, and and there are many consistent principles that are evident as you follow, as I study these different arenas. But the first one that became very apparent to me as I started studying acceptance speeches is not a single person ever said that the reason why they were successful was because of them. In fact, the first thing that usually people said was, I want to thank my partner, I want to thank my coach, I want to thank my brother, I want to thank my sister. And so what I would share with you, and it's something that I've had to learn, is expand your definition of success in terms of, if you are trying to do things by yourself, your chances of succeeding are dramatically decreased. You know, I was looking at some numbers, particularly around houses, because one of the things that I hear a lot from people is, well, Cassim, I can't afford to get a deposit for a house. I can't afford to be able to buy my own house. Rents are really high at the moment. I can't, the salaries aren't that great at the moment. And it's funny that many times whenever I hear that statement being said by somebody and I observe that person is usually single. And when you start looking at partnerships, part of the reason, and as I say, a lot of people don't really understand the whole reason for marriage. One of the great benefits of marriage is that marriage is this incredible partnership where everything is almost doubled. So, for example, let's just take, if you're in a job at the moment and you are saving money to buy your first house, and God forbid you're amazing and you're doing like incredibly and you're making every possible saving that you can, and every single month you're saving about £500. If you save about £500 within a year, you would have saved about £6,000, give or take, right? Let's just round it up. It's about £6,000 if you're doing it alone. If you and your missus, or if you and your other half, your mister, saved together and you came into a partnership together and you started saving, you would double. In other words, you could reach what would have taken you a year to achieve, you could do in half the time. And can you now start to understand why partnerships are so significant and allow people to achieve results that they just simply wouldn't be able to achieve? It's interesting that I looked at a lot of people. I studied a lot of millionaires actually because I wanted to understand what does it take to become a millionaire. And it is very, very, very rare that I ever found anybody who was a multi-millionaire who was single. Of course, there are some people who become multimillionaires and they are single. There's always an exception to every rule. But most of the time, whenever I studied somebody who either had multiple properties in their assets, which if they sold them would be worth £1 million. If I studied somebody who, if they sold their business would be worth more than £1 million, or whatever arena that I looked at, in almost every single one of those cases, that person was either in a partnership, in a business, they were either in a partnership, in a relationship. There was always some kind of partnership. And I would share with you that you want to start to really look at how many partnerships that you have in your life. And I wasn't just thinking about it in terms of that, but one of the great things that partnerships allows you to do is that partnerships allows you to also raise your standards. When you are in a partnership, you raise your standards. You know, there is a statement that I share with, particularly when I coach leaders. When I'm coaching leaders and I'm coaching somebody who wants to do incredible things, I mean, they want to live like a spectacular kind of life. They want to become an anomaly. They want to do things which are impossible. One of the things that I share with them is it's a philosophy that I live by, which is that people will do more for other people than they will ever do for themselves. And the reason why I share this with them is because I've found that particularly us men will do very, 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 very little for ourselves. We could easily, if we didn't have a girlfriend or if we didn't have to go to work, we could go weeks, months without having to have our hair cut. We would go months without having to clean our rooms. But it's funny because I have friends of mine who don't look after their health, who don't look after their physical body, who don't look after their rooms, who absolutely live like shit. But the moment they're in a relationship or the moment one of the guys, their missus says that she's coming over, all of a sudden the guy changes his bed sheets, he cleans his room, he sorts out his hair. And it's just incredible what getting into that partnership, into that relationship does for raising your standards. And this is, I think, to finish this off, because I'm about to overrun with time, what I would share with you is it's really important, and I think it's part of wisdom and really understanding and reaching the highest maturity levels that you can, that you have to understand that you cannot do things by yourself. You can certainly do them by yourself to begin off with, because sometimes there is nobody else for you to partner with or you can't find a partner. But if you want to achieve great success, if you want to achieve great abundance, you're going to need to go into some kind of partnership, right? Life is so difficult and so hard that trying to do it by yourself is just hard. It is just really, really difficult. And I've just found that a lot of people are choosing to go through life and they're not becoming as successful as they can be. They're not achieving their capacity and their potential as they can be because they're trying to do everything by themselves. And as a result, they have no free time. They can't exercise their creativity. They can't exercise or manifest any of the different versions of who they're capable of becoming because they're so preoccupied with simply trying to survive. And what I would share with you is you want to get away from trying to survive. You want to get away from security and you want to get to freedom. That's where there is creativity. That's where there's abundance. That's where you can begin to contribute not only to yourself, but to your family, but to your community. And who knows, even one day you may be able to contribute to the world. So that's what I would share with you and ask you to really, really think about in your life. Is there some partnerships that you can begin to collaborate and begin to join in that will allow you to take your success from a 11 to a 12, to a 13, to a 14, maybe, you never know, to a 50 one day? Just something for you to think about. So that's the first thing that I was thinking about. The second thing that I was thinking about and I've been journaling about is this concept of that it's time, there comes a point and it's time that you make the difficult decisions. So let me explain how this happened. So I have a friend of mine, and she's kind of torn. She has been in a relationship with a guy, and they've been together, I think, something like 7 years or so. And this guy is younger than her. And she, as most of you guys know, women typically, and I'm generalizing here, women typically, in a maturity perspective, do tend to be slightly a bit mature than men. Again, there's always an exception to every rule. Clearly, we know men who are young and are very mature. But as a generalization, women typically, in terms of maturity, based on the data and based on all the research that we have, tend to be more mature than boys do. And so she's older than the guy, and she's got to that point in her life where she started thinking about family, she started thinking about settling down, she started thinking about marriage. The issue is, the guy that she has invested a huge amount of her time, a huge amount of her energy, a huge amount of her resources, her emotional energy, her spiritual energy, is not at that stage. And so she's torn between these two worlds, where she's kind of torn between, do I kind of cut loose this, what I've invested a huge amount of my time and energy and spirituality and all of myself into, or do I take the risk and take and embrace my destiny and embrace something new? And I'm here to tell you that I've found in my own life that there is a right time to do certain things. Let me put this another way. There is an ideal time to make certain decisions. So let me take this further. So I've noticed that if you want to grow fruit, if you want to grow strawberries, if you want to grow roses, if you want to grow mangoes, there is an ideal time to start planting the fruit, to start planting the seeds. I found that in life, if you would like to have children, there is an ideal time to start having children, to start obviously coming off the pill or whatever it may be for you, and start genuinely aligning things in your life to the degree that you can start a family. Now, listen to me very carefully. Again, as I say, I talk about an ideal time, but like I've always said, there's always an exception to every rule. For example, if I'm generalizing here, for a woman, the ideal time for a woman to have a baby is somewhere between, I don't know, if we're looking at how easy it is for a woman to get pregnant, it'll be somewhere between the ages of 18 and maybe somewhere up to about ages 35. Now, in me saying that, that doesn't mean that women cannot have children after 35. Of course they can. We know women who've had children after 35. But what I'm trying to articulate to you is that there's kind of an ideal time. And if you look all throughout society and all throughout the way in which the world works, it seems to me that all over life there seems to be ideal times when you should be doing specific things. And I want to encourage you, and it's something that I've really had to apply in my life, that you have to be very, very, very careful in your life that you don't allow your emotions to cloud the part of the human psyche which allows us to be able to think practically. Because I have found that so many women, for example, get themselves in a situation where they invest a huge amount of their time into a relationship, and they hang on and they hang on and they hang on, and they think the guy will change, and they think the guy will eventually ask them for marriage, and the girl now continues to hang on and hang on and hang on, and now the girl is 36 years of age, and all of a sudden she's still not got commitment, she's still not got the ring, they still don't live together, they still have never talked about children, they've never talked about family, they've never talked about investments, they've never talked about the future, they've never combined their lives together. And now the woman has left it so late that some of the things that she originally wanted are now things that have very little chance of coming to fruition. She now has to do things that she didn't necessarily have to do. In other words, there is a phrase which I want to share with you, which is, don't go for relief, go for fulfillment. In other words, if there is a difficult decision that you have to make, which is going to be more painful today, but in the future is going to bring you more abundance, is going to be more fruitful, take it, make it. And I tell you this because some of you are being driven so much by emotion. Yeah, but Cassim, this is how I feel, but it's going to be so hard, but it's going to be so difficult, that you are risking something greater for something which is okay today. I'm saying to you that in life you have to, part of maturing and part of reaching higher levels of wisdom is that you need to know when you should be making certain cuts in your life, when you should be making difficult decisions. And I'm weary because some of you guys, you're not making decisions that you need to be making at necessary times. Some of you guys, I found that you want to start your own business, okay? But you keep talking about, well, I'll start it then, and I'll start it when this is perfect. But I found that if you're going to try to start your own business, ideally, the ideal time to start your own business is when you're young, when you don't have a family, when you don't have commitments, when you don't have a mortgage, when you don't have grandchildren, when you don't have a pension, when you don't have tax, home insurance, and all of those different factors. Now listen, again, I will say that does not mean that you can't start a business at 70, at 50, at 60, at 40. Of course you can. But I'm just saying, it's more ideal for you to start the business when you're younger and you don't have a lot of commitments. And some of you aren't making the decisions because you're like, well, Cassim, I don't think that I'm ready. I don't think that I have the experience. Can I just ask you, how do you get experience? The way that you get experience is by doing. I remember there was a conversation that I had with a friend of mine who wanted to start a cocktail business, and every time I would see him, he would tell me about how he's not ready and he doesn't have the experience and he needs to become a manager. And I said to him, listen, if you want to start your own business, the way that you gain experience, the way that you learn how management works is you freaking do it. Right? Start, do something at all. Make the difficult decision, which you will, yes, you're going to fall. Yes, you're going to step and you're going to fail. Yes, you're going to mess things up. But that is experience. Essentially, experience is when you fail and you realize, oh, that doesn't work. See, a lot of people want to have it perfect, and a lot of people want to tiptoe their way through life, and people think, if I make the easier decision, then somehow it will work out. Then if I take the road which is more traveled, then I have a better chance of succeeding. But I'm going to give you the advice that I once heard from Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey said that you can fail at what you don't want, so you might as well take a chance on what you love. And I would share with you to expand that definition and say that if you've got something which is okay now and which is stable, but is in the long run is not going to bring you fulfillment, isn't going to bring you joy, isn't going to leave a lot of room for you to expand all of your definitions, make the difficult decision to quit it. Stop it now. Yes, it's going to be difficult. Yes, it's going to be hard. Yes, you're going to cry. Yes, everybody's going to think that you're nuts and you're crazy that you're leaving this job which is actually good and secure. But if actually you're going to have more fulfillment, more excitement, more adventure on going after this thing that is more risky, that might not work out, I'll tell you what, in the long run, it's going to be more worth it. Do you know what I found? I found that it's better to fail at something that you genuinely wanted than to fail at something that you didn't want originally. That's what I have found. But again, that's what I wanted to share with you. It's your life, you think about it. But I've just realized a lot of people just don't make the decisions that they need to make because they're waiting for the perfect time. And they're like, Cassim, it will work out. No, it isn't going to work out. I'm telling you. I've found in my life that 9 times out of 10, if you leave something, it does not get better. You usually have to take charge of it, you have to improve it, you have to attack it, you have to skill up, you have to deal with it, and then it starts improving. I don't know. It's up to you. Something for you to think about. Now, the last thing that I wanted to share with you is on this topic of, now that you're older, you want different things. So I wanted to share some notes on this because I've been recently thinking about a lot of friends of mine and people who I've encountered who, when they were younger, they believed certain things and they had certain philosophies and they wanted certain things and they hated certain people and they believed certain things. But over the years, they've grown. Over the years, they've developed. And actually, their appetite now has changed. Their motivations have now changed. Their emotional state has now changed. But the issue is, their life hasn't changed to match where they're at the moment. So, for example, some of you guys, when you were younger, you had no hope. You couldn't be asked. And you didn't believe anything to do with relationships. You weren't interested. You never wanted to get married. You never wanted to ever be in a relationship. It wasn't even on your radar. Cass, I'm not interested. I don't care. Okay? My parents got divorced. Everyone I know has split up. I don't want anything to do with marriage. But you've now found yourself in a situation where actually things have changed. You found yourself in a situation now where you found a girl that you actually like. Like, she's pretty decent. And marriage is important to her. And the thing is, because you're still living from that prism and from that paradigm of when you were younger, you've not realized that you've changed now. Okay, you've changed, you've developed, things have definitely changed in your life, and actually now you do consider marriage, it is something that could be on the cards. And what I'm saying to you now is, don't allow the fact that when you were younger you believe something to then have to carry it all throughout your life. You can change it if you really want to. You can update it. Yes, I get it. There's going to be some people who may say, well, hold on a minute, but you've always said you don't believe in marriage. Look, that's life. No one is ever going to fully accept any of the decisions you make. There's always going to be somebody who's going to be like, well, you're lying, you're cheating, well, it's fake, whatever. If you don't want criticism in your life, do nothing, hope for nothing, don't do anything if you don't ever want anyone to criticize you, ever. Right? That's the only way that you not get criticism. There's some of you who, when you were younger, you really hated your mum. You hated her. You two never got on. You had a terrible relationship. She never really understood you. You never really clicked. It just wasn't good. But now that you've got older, you've started to understand a bit more. You've started yourself to experience some of the problems that your mum went through, trying to become a single mum, trying to live up to the expectation of a wife, trying to live up to expectations of trying to raise a family, of trying to make money, but also trying to be in a relationship. But then all the problems with having problems with the mum and that relationship and the complexities of it. And you've started to really get your mum and start to get her. But the issue is, you still are holding onto this image that you had of your mum when you were younger, where you hated her and you guys didn't get on. And it's stopping you from you two having what could be, in the future, an incredible relationship. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen in a year, but I'm saying you never know where you guys could be in 20, 30, 40 years' time. Right? Your mum isn't getting any younger, but you've grown, you've matured, right? Your perspective of life, your experience has intensified. It's taken on different layers and different levels. And so you see the world differently now. And as a result, you see your mum differently. And what I'm saying to you is, don't allow what you went through when you were younger and the way that you experienced and the relationship that you had with your parents and your mum when you were younger to stop you from developing and letting that relationship that you could have now evolve into something different. I'm saying to you that some of you guys, when you were younger, honestly, you couldn't give a shit about anything, right? You were not motivated, you didn't have any desire to do anything in your life, you were all about security. But now you've got to the point where you thought, maybe I might get into this house renovations, buy houses, do them up. You've now you've been touched by life, right? You were quite a selfish person in most of your life, but now you've started to think, well, I could do this and I could help with that, and I could start this workshop, or I could mentor this, or I could do this online course. But the thing is, you're still so hung up with who you used to be in the past and how you're an introvert and how you're not a speaker and how you're just somebody who is not a people person, that you are allowing something who you were so many years ago to stop you from embracing who you can be, from manifesting all the different versions of who you're capable of becoming. And you've pretty much realized that you have something to give, right? When you were younger and you were an introvert and no one really paid you any attention, you didn't really have any desire to help anyone. But now you've realized, actually, God, you doing whatever it is that you do genuinely is actually of a benefit to people. It genuinely helps people and people love it and people appreciate you for doing it. And it's kind of a feeling which you've never really experienced. You've never really had attention before in your life. It's a bit odd and a bit strange. And you've never had anyone who genuinely has been like, thank you so much. But it started to happen in your life. And what I would share with you is, look, you're older now, okay? You've changed. You've developed. Forget about that shit. Forget about what you were like when you were younger, right? Update your philosophy. Update your skill set. Update your attitude. Forget about the fact that you were an introvert before. Okay, fine. You were an introvert when you were younger. Well, now you don't have to be an introvert anymore. You know, when sometimes I watch films, and one of the things that I absolutely love about films is I love coming of age movies. And I was watching a movie recently where one of the characters in the book, in the film, said something that I absolutely loved. He said, you know, when you were in school, you were quiet and you were bullied and you had a really shit time. But when you go to university, you can be anyone you want to. Because at university, nobody knows you, nobody knows your past, nobody knows the experience that you had. You can literally become anyone that you want to be. You can be interested in whatever you want to be interested in. Well, let's just bring that back down to earth and let me say this to you. We live in a world today where you can be anything you want, man. Forget about how you've been in the past. Forget about what people say you like. Embrace who you want to become. Be like a butterfly, man. One day you're a caterpillar, the next day you're a butterfly. We live in a world today where you can do that, right? You know, it's funny because I spend a lot of time coaching leaders and talking to leaders and interviewing leaders. And one of the things that I've learned about leaders, and it's been a shock to me actually, is do you know what? I would have thought that most leaders would be charismatic and they would be outgoing and they'd be like these really kind of bourgeois, kind of vivacious individuals. But most leaders, people who genuinely make change in life, they're usually like just normal people. They're usually very quiet, but they're really good at doing something. They're usually not the most cleverest people, but they just have a really strong desire to make change or to make some improvements. And a lot of the time, they end up functioning in an area where most people would not think that they would be functioning in. And part of the reason, and I bet you guys have realized this, have you ever like studied somebody, and when you studied them, you thought, oh, like somebody like Ronaldo or somebody like Usain Bolt, that they must have been born like prodigies, and they must have some amazing life, and they must be like some extravagant background. But then you study their life, and they're like just normal people, and they eat normal food, and they had a normal background, and you're like, well, how can somebody like that ever do remarkable things? And a lot of the time, it's just because they were courageous enough to dare to actually try it. You know, I was saying to somebody the other day that we live in a world today where most of us think that the fastest runner in the world is people like Usain Bolt. That is not true. The fastest runner on the planet, most of us don't know who that person is. The reason why Usain Bolt is the fastest runner on the planet is because he's the only one who's been courageous enough to actually dare to go into the Olympics. Do you guys, honestly, you guys know people who are amazing singers, and you see those people who go on the X Factor, right, on Britain's Got Talent. You guys know people who are far much more talented, who are better singers than most of those people who go on the X Factor, right? But yet, they're not famous, but yet they don't achieve that level of success. Why? Because they never took the chance. They never actually put themselves out there. They never used that aspect of the human psyche called courage to go and give it a try. And what I want to finish today off with, and I'm asking you to try to do this year, take a risk. Go for it. Like, open up and expand your definition of who you are, right? Forget about the fact that you're an introvert. Forget about the fact that you're a shy person. Forget about the fact that you were born in a council estate. Forget about the fact that you weren't very good at school. Well, become good now. If you weren't good at reading, become good at reading now. If you didn't go to university before, we'll go university now. If you weren't in a position of leadership and you're always a shy person and you were always a person who never spoke up, well, be the person who can speak up now. You don't have to be what you were all of your life. Human beings don't have to be like that. You can be whatever you is that you want and desire. So that's what I wanted to share with you. Just things that I've thought about this week. I don't know whether they've been useful for you or not, or they've kind of added some value to your life. But as you guys know, the whole reason why I share these with you is I don't share them with you to give you some amazing enlightenment about my life. I share them with you because I want to inspire you to do the same. Write down what your goals are. Write down what is success to you. Write down things that you've learned. Right? What are your if you could give your next door neighbor's children 10 steps to becoming successful, or 10 lessons that you've learned that have led to failures in your life, and you're like, do not do this. If you do this because I've done it, your life will end up shit. My question to you is, what would that be? Because whilst you may not be a multimillionaire, a billionaire, own a mansion, be some CEO, be a politician, be a president, you still have experience. You've had some amazing knowledge that other people do not have. You have some experience that other people have not experienced. And you can't even say, well, Cassim, I've been through nothing, because that's a lie. Now, if you're comparing what you've been through compared to somebody clearly, I don't know, who's born with no legs, their family all got shot, then of course your story isn't that bad. But I would share with you that every single one of us, our struggles are different, and you've been through different struggles to everybody else, and you have something to give, and your story is unique because it's you who went through it, and there is no other version of you on the planet, and will never be, and has never been, another version of you. So share it with your next door neighbors, share it with your brothers and sisters. Let them at least have a head start so that they can elevate their life to a level that me and you couldn't even dare possibly imagine, right? Isn't that ultimately what we wanted? We wanted somebody to help us, point us in the right direction and say, look, no, don't go this way. Don't go into gangs. Don't go into knife crimes. No. Go towards this way. Go to school, go to uni. Just what I mean. What I'm saying to you is, why don't you be that for the next generation? Because remember, we are the grown-ups now. If you are over the age of 25, you now are the grown-up. You are the adults. So everything that the next generation are going to learn about morality, about conviction, about what life is all about religion, about faith, about how to interact with different people who conflict with us, about how to handle conflict, all of that, the next generation are going to learn from us. They're going to be like, oh, look, Ben, Cass, oh, that's what they do when they're angry. Oh, Mum does running every Sunday. Oh, that must be what people are supposed to do. Oh, in our household, we sit in front of the TV when it's dinner table. Oh, that's what must be normal. That's what we must do, right? So that's us. That's our responsibility now. That's what I wanted to finish off with. Happy Valentine's. Thank you very much for watching. If you want more of this stuff, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel Cassimotive on YouTube to get more of this kind of content. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.